listening to Irish Illustrated Insider. It's Tuesday, August 23rd. We are 11 days away from the opening kickoff, Notre Dame, Ohio State in Ohio Stadium on September 3rd. I am Tim Priestley with Tim O'Malley from Irish Illustrated. And Tim, Notre Dame scrimmaged on Thursday. There was a reference made by one of the safeties yesterday about scrimmaging yesterday, but I think that was just an isolated little moment within practice. But the scrimmage was on Thursday. We went to practice on Friday. The offense didn't look very good, and mostly 7-on-7 stuff. It wasn't full scale stuff. But Marcus Freeman had said the previous day that the offense won based upon the main criteria being who do you protect the football? Do you take the football away? And the offense protected the football with only one turnover. But we've heard several conflicting comments regarding who played well and who did what. What's your perspective on some of the information that was passed on to us?
Yeah, all trustworthy people too. Now, one thing we do know is the offense scored 4 or 5 touchdowns in that scrimmage. Yet multiple people told us Tyler Buchner didn't look that good.
Well, and that the defense controlled the line of scrimmage too. So
which
I do believe that the 5 touchdown number was accurate.
Yeah. I guess there's probably other plays involved in a scrimmage where people can be looking at it and say, well, I mean, you're averaging whatever yards a carry on every other play, so they didn't look that good. The key here is it's good news that the offense scored 5 touchdowns in a scrimmage. The offense is behind Notre Dame's defense by all analysts, right? Going into the season, would you say that? Because
at least all analysts outside of the practice field.
Sure, but it's fair though. They're missing their best offensive lineman right now. They've been missing receivers all of camp, except the most important one, Lorenzo Styles, and of course, Michael Merritt, tight end. They're missing a running back. They're missing a running back they're going to have and a running back they're not going to have. They're more shorthanded. The defense, you can't name guys they're missing other than Leofau, who we were told was very active in the scrimmage, which could put to bed some of the rumors about him being injured. Now, it's okay for an offense to be behind the defense going into the season, right? It's just people are worried about it, and I get it. They're sensitive because they're playing a team that's going to score 35 points rolling out of bed every game to open the season. It makes it tough for your offense if you're a little behind.
Yeah, it does. I mean, if the offense had the kind of success that we heard, that's good news. Now, you can flip the page and say, well, how come the defense isn't playing better? We weren't there exactly. We know that it looked like everything that they were doing in the passing game was a bit of a struggle until they went into a very, very brief team period, 11-on-11, and they had a little bit of short space success or short period success. But I think we still feel very confident about the defense and where Notre Dame is. If Tyler Buchner is starting to come of age in August, that's a great sign. That is, in my opinion, the greatest concern going into Ohio Stadium. And it's not just Tyler Buchner; it's any first-time starting quarterback going into that stadium and having to perform. Oregon beat them last year at Ohio State, but Anthony Brown had plenty of college playing experience. Not that he's a world beater, and not that his stats were very good. That'll come up later in segment 2 with a question. But here we are. We're reaching that point of August in the preseason where we need to see a football game now, because anytime you're going offense, defense, offense, good news is also bad news, and bad news is also good news. So maybe some progress being made by the offense, which was absolutely necessary when camp opened because of all the shortcomings that you have at receiver, the limited number of running backs. Although I think if Logan Diggs is healthy and ready to go, I think those top 3 running backs are going to be very good. We heard good things about Tobias Merriweather and Audric Estime from the scrimmage on Thursday. And that's none of that is a surprise. I think Notre Dame fans are going to be excited to see. I think Audric Estime is going to carry some defenders with him this year during the 2022 season.
Yeah, it's an offense that the weakness right now is depth, because if you lose a guy you could normally afford to lose and go 10-0, like Braden Lenzy, when they went 10-0 and they lost Braden Lenzy, or 11-1 when they've lost Braden Lenzy. If you lose Braden Lenzy this year,
Yeah, it
You
gets.
can't. That's the problem with the receivers and running backs. Now, hey, Logan Diggs is back. Yeah, well, you still, if you lose Chris Tyree or you lose Audric Estime or Logan Diggs, it's just a numbers game. It's not. It's their fault at wide receiver. It's not really their fault at running back. You can't carry more than six
No.
scholarship running backs.
Yeah.
Someone's going to leave. But I think even the offensive line depth, Tim. They have 7 returning starters, 8 if you include Tosh Baker, which you probably shouldn't. He wouldn't have started in that situation. But if Tosh Baker's your 8th guy, your 8th most experienced guy, that's a nice start. It's the opponent. It is, if Jarrett Patterson was missing the Marshall and California game, it would be absolutely fine. It's that they're playing Ohio State in the season's most important game for Notre Dame and one of the 3 most important games of the college football season for determining playoff bids. So everything is heightened right now. People are on edge with things that are going on. I mean, if Maris Leafau was ramping up to get ready for Marshall, nobody would care. It doesn't matter as much. It's a situation where this has been circled since Marcus Freeman got the job. Even before the Oklahoma State game was being played, people were talking about this game.
Yeah. Let me just clarify. You're not saying Jarrett Patterson won't play in the Ohio State game.
No, I'm saying nobody would care if he was missing game 1 against Marshall. Yeah.
We don't know that. I still, if he plays, I don't think he's 100%. I don't think that he's really near 100% if he plays.
He plays is kind of heroic, right? I mean, he's just going out there and gutting it out because you're not supposed to be healthy at this point with that injury.
Well, see, you're saying that injury and Marcus Freeman called it a sprained foot. Now, if you take that at face value, then, it's just a sprained foot. He should be ready to go for Ohio State. We'll see about that. I just think it's going to be really, really difficult for him to play. And if he plays, he's not going to be 100%. So let's just leave it at that. Now, not to spend most of this segment talking about injuries, but Cam Hart was not at practice yesterday, or he wasn't during the first 5 periods.
Right. He did walk in. When we were leaving, we saw Cam Hart.
Yes. He joined them shortly thereafter, but let's just leave it at that. But he had a hamstring. Remember going into the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma State, he had a hamstring, and there was a question as to whether he would play. I don't know how much that impacted him, but that was not a good secondary that day. And the last thing that they could afford was for Cam Hart not to be at 100%. So
I was about to talk about all the depth I've seen growing in that secondary this year with 4 safeties that can play and two freshman corners that can play. And even safeties coach Chris O'Leary talked about them yesterday. 2 freshman corners that can play, 3 veteran corners. Tim, their secondary, they're 4 guys and they're 4 safeties and they're 3 corners. Have over 7,000 collegiate snaps. And Mickey and Morrison are like 2 of the more exciting players that aren't included in that.
Ben Morrison, as O'Leary referred to him, is the other freshman that you were talking about.
Yes. But they need Cam Hart for Ohio State. That's once again, Cam Hart and Ohio State. If you miss one practice 11 days before because your hamstring or anything else is bothering you, that's fine. But you need Cam Hart. That
may very well be the case. We have access to practice tomorrow, right? Yep, Wednesday. Right. And we'll keep an eye on that as well. But Xavier Watts is now part receiver, part safety, special team starter on kickoffs and kick returns, according to him. I really enjoy interviewing Xavier Watts. I don't know. Have you had an opportunity?
Yeah, like in the spring.
In the past? Yep. Yeah, in the spring you did. I really enjoy dealing with him because I think, he admitted that, hey, the first couple of years when he wasn't playing, he's kind of grousing around a little bit. And now he's just taking the attitude that, hey, I hear I'm at Notre Dame. I've got an opportunity to play both ways. I'm going for it. And I'm just going to come out and enjoy the experience every day, be there for my teammates. It was really great to hear his, the juggling act that he's going through because he's still a new safety.
Right,
he hasn't,
right.
Last year he was just see the ball, hit the ball. And so he's come a long way since then. And he made the point of, it's still Tommy Rees's offense. The plays are basically the same. I just haven't been, doing a lot of the drills and running the routes. And he's putting in overtime post practice with his position coaches. So, one of his biggest dilemmas now is settling on the number that he wants. And he's made up his mind. He doesn't want number 26, but it might be the only number that he can wear on both sides of the ball that he's comfortable with. He has a real problem with the number in the 20s. He was wearing number 4 on defense.
He's not getting that on offense.
Can't wear 4 on offense because Lorenzo Styles moved to that right now. So Mickey has 21 on defense. Which is the number that Styles relinquished.
You're just saying that Xavier Watts gets the raw deal all the time, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay.
So he may be stuck with 26, but he said, "Hey, playing time's more important than my numbers." So
I talked to Houston Griffith and DJ Brown about Watts, and I thought Brown made the best point. He goes, "I am not concerned about his growth as a safety because huge difference between the spring and during camp. He spent all summer studying the playbook, knowing all that. Now every safety needs to play with other safeties to have communication, but he said he's not." This would have been an issue in the spring, kind of was insinuated, but it's not now. He can come back and be a safety as needed because he took enough leaps in terms of knowing what he's supposed to do.
Right.
Obviously, though, you're going to be 5th in the pecking order when that happens because these guys are communicating back and forth.
Yeah. Quote from Brandon Joseph about Xavier Watts yesterday: "X is a beast. I wish I could play both ways."
Yeah.
He's because he was a receiver in high school. He said, "I love playing receiver too." But he said, but when he goes over there on offense, he's catching everything. He's got hands for sure, undoubtedly. Then he comes over to the defensive side and he's a beast. All of those guys talk about, it's no surprise to Notre Dame fans and us that, Watts is a very physical football player back there.
How we were told that the Friday 11-on-11 thud scrimmage didn't really matter?
Yeah.
Did it matter that Xavier Watts made the best catch, or does that not matter at all because that whole scrimmage didn't matter?
I think it all matters.
Is it still cool that Xavier Watts made a leaping catch and got hit in the head, or does it not matter because nothing mattered that day? Apparently,
you're being sarcastic.
I am. It was a great catch. He took a shot.
Because we were told the offense struggled, a bit on Friday, and we were told that it was of no consequence. Well, if it's of no consequence, then I'm not sure why you're spending practice time on it. But point taken. I realize the scrimmage is all encompassing. And
my point was, though, he is a fearless guy. Like he went up for that catch, and maybe he didn't know he was going to get drilled because of the type of scrimmage it was, but he took a shot, and I think it was a blow to the head. Honestly, there were officials there. They didn't call it.
We both saw that. We thought his initial reaction was that he took a shot to the head and then he was fine.
Really nice catch, though. And every time I want to write him off, I think to myself, who are we writing him off for?
Yeah. Well, no, that's exactly it. And look, he's skilled. I mean, he caught, where did I write it down? He caught 163 passes for, 36 touchdowns in high school. I mean, he was a prolific high school receiver, and he has the size, he has the physicality, he has the hands.
He has the opportunity.
He has the opportunity. He's now 193, but he said it's a way better 193. He said I was kind of chubby my first 2 years. He said I wasn't out of shape, but his body fat is way down. So he's primed and ready to go. And if there's a guy that can, ultimately this year, 2022, he has no idea what goes beyond this year, nor should he, or even care about it. You're dialed into where you are right now. But ultimately he's going to have to settle into one position more than the other. And if he does, end up catching 8, 10, 12, 15 passes this year, then maybe he ends up staying on that side.
Yeah. I feel like we've talked too much about Xavier Watts, so I'm not going to beat this dead horse, but there's 4 wide receivers that we know for Notre Dame are going to be heavily involved this season if healthy. And Styles, Merriweather, Lindsey, and Jaden Thomas. So someone's going to be the 5th. It could be Joe Wilkins. It could be Deion Colsey. It could be Xavier Watts.
It could be Matt Salerno out of the slot. It could be
Matt Salerno down the line. Yeah. So someone has a role because we really only know about 4. And one of those guys has never caught a pass, or 2 of those guys have never caught a pass.
Segment 1 of Irish Illustrated Insider has been brought to you by Circa Resort and Casino. The biggest pro football overlays in Vegas are back with $12 million in guaranteed prizes only at Circa Sports. With 2 ways to win and no rake, Circa Sports Million with quarterly payouts and 100% payback. Play Circa Survivor and select one team each week with no point spread. Take in the big money with $12 million in guaranteed prizes. Enter in Las Vegas. Play from anywhere. Visit circasports.com for details. Coming up, segment 2, burning up the boards.
This is Mike Brown, former Notre Dame Leprechaun, here to share the Leprechauns Game Day at Notre Dame, an officially licensed children's book that celebrates the magic of a football Saturday at Notre Dame. Follow me on an adventure from Step Off Under the Golden Dome to ND Stadium with this perfect gift for Fighting Irish fans. Visit www.lepgameday.com and enter Irish to get your author-signed copy today. Go Irish!
Segment 2 of Irish Illustrated Insider is burning up the board. So we start with a question from BWAC29. Now that camp is over, BWAC lists 3 questions. I'll go one at a time here, Tim. Question number 1, biggest surprise positive development during camp? Not necessarily individual, but just biggest.
Yeah, so the individual
surprise.
one for me is not a big deal to this year, but I want to throw it out there. Ben Morrison joining Jaden Mickey in these conversations and what we saw. I just figured Ben Morrison would be a really good player starting next year. He looks like a guy that's, if somebody gets hurt, Ben Morrison could come in and compete.
Yeah, he's a feisty little.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've said it and written it. I mean, in terms of feistiness, he's a lot like Jaden Mickey.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's as far advanced. We haven't seen him as much as we saw Mickey, but
in terms
yeah,
of,
I mean, there are a lot. I don't know that a ton of things have really surprised me.
Yeah, we cover it every day. It's kind of like who's the surprise player. It's like, well, no. I mean,
maybe maybe Blake Groupie and
yes, that's
right. the confidence that it seems like he's gained and it sounds very much like he's been very good and very consistent.
I think, and Mason was almost indignant about the issues of the spring. He started off by saying we needed 5 new specialists. Our holder in the spring was absolutely not going to be our holder. He was just taking one for the team, trying to learn to hold. Of course, we didn't kick the ball well. It's fixed. Now, is it fixed? I don't know. It's harder to kick in Columbus than it is there, but it's Blake Groupie came in as a weakness from our perspective from the outside world because Marcus Freeman mentioned special teams concerns him, kicker and punter. He hadn't seen them yet. I no longer have a major concern other than I'm afraid, every time a kicker goes to kick, unless he's David Ruffer a couple of years or 10 years ago where the ball was always going in. You're always a little worried. You were worried about Jonathan Dorr even when he was having his best year. You'd still think he was going to shank one once in a while.
Actually, maybe the biggest surprise is Bryce McPherson and what they've been saying about him as a kickoff man. I mean, I did not. First of all, John Stott, the walk-on kicker, is the holder, and it's funny because Mason said it, and a couple of his teammates said it that he's an experienced holder. He's did it for 4 years at Harvard. No, he did not. He did it for 1 year at Harvard, but he is apparently so good at it that they all think he did it for 4 years. So that's all that really matters. But McPherson is the one that, I asked, well, first of all, Mason said he won the kickoff job in 5 minutes. And secondly, I asked him, what kind of percentage are you looking at for touchbacks? And he said 80%, top 5 in the country. Now that would qualify as the biggest surprise of the spring for me.
That would be a great one too.
I know he has a great leg, but I mean, all of those accolades were a little bit shocking to hear.
Sure. And Blake Groupie, we asked Blake Groupie, there's about 9 of us around him. So are you in competition for the kickoff job with Josh Bryan? And he gave us this look like, you must not know, huh? And then he just pointed over at Bryce McPherson, the other side of the room. He's like, no, man, you are going to see a show. I guess Bryce McPherson, according to Michael Vincent, won the freshman sprint when he showed up in June. Tobias Merriweather and Jadarian Price were involved in the freshman sprint. Now, whether that is a mild exaggeration or not, he insisted on it. Blake Groupie kind of backed him up. I don't think he's faster than those guys, but that dude must be able to run for any of that too.
Well, if you've seen his leg extension as a punter, and that to me, that's a great indication of athleticism.
Future punter, because John Stott, as of now, has won the job, they said.
Yeah, you know what? I really kind of missed that. Well, he said if we started today, it would be John Stott, but that isn't going to change. Another surprise, I know you're going to agree with this, Joe Wilkins.
Yes.
Running around on the field in uniform after having Liz Frank. Liz Frank.
Part 2 here. Player you think will get significantly more snaps than you thought pre-camp. Joe Wilkins, because I didn't think Joe Wilkins would be seen until October.
That's a great. That is question number 2 of BWAC 29. Player you think will get significantly more snaps than you thought pre-camp. Yeah, Wilkins. Wilkins is at the top of the list. Maybe Logan Diggs, at least as it relates to the start of the season.
And maybe the guy. Now, what about Bertrand?
Yeah, I feel responsible for, and I know that there's a huge segment out there that are dwelling on the 12 missed tackles that he made over the course of a season in space, and disregarding all the times that he filled a gap and drilled somebody. I mean, I can't. Bertrand has just gotten such a raw deal in the perception, and I know there will be people that are waiting for him to miss a tackle in open space, and it'll be thrown in our face. But JD Bertrand's a good football player, but you need both. You need him and Leofau, and that is
three with Bauer. I'm just saying.
Right.
I think we all figured coaches don't look at it the way even we did. If for people that support Bertrand's play, I think Bertrand's the guy that would be on the field the most out of Leofau, Bauer, and Bertrand right now.
I agree.
And I would have had him third entering camp. So there's a surprise.
This is a when you talk about football IQ of the Notre Dame linebacker core, it's as high as you're ever going to find it.
Yeah. Third
part
of this question was
go ahead,
which freshman will have the best career at Notre Dame, which is kind of tough to figure out right now. But Merriweather, he said Singleton. We assume he means Price. Raridan, Stays, Mickey, or other.
I wish they had Nicholas Singleton, but I think he means Jadarian Price. The injury is a bit of a setback. That's tough. I think I'm going to say Mickey, just based upon the comments that Marcus Freeman made to us, right? When you and I were sitting down with that's when he made that comment when the three of us sat down. And so I would say Mickey, but man, I've been blown away by Holden Stays, how good he looks. I think we're all excited about Eli Raridan. He's bounced back from the ACL. Merriweather is right up there. And Jadarian Price, assuming that I don't think there's any reason to think that he won't get back to the level that he was at. But man, there's a bunch of good guys that BWAC chose 6 really good ones from which to choose. Tui Alamaka might be a guy to throw into that group, right?
That's the one guy left out that as of now you could throw into that group. And clearly it could be any of the freshmen because nobody knows anything their first August camp. But Tui Halamaka would be the other that you want to list right now.
Right. Question from David Lopez 5. How concerned are you with the quarterback playing with the offense overall? And I tag that with the question from J Bolt 250. I saw Anthony Brown's stat line from last year at Ohio State. He's the Oregon quarterback. Do you all think Buchner performs worse, similar, or better than Brown did in that game? Anthony Brown, for the record, was 17 of 35 for 236 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 10 carries for 65 yards with a long of 18. Do you think that, I guess let's answer the second question first, Tim. Do you think that Tyler Buchner puts up comparable stats to that? That would be slightly under 50% throwing.
300 total yards.
300 total yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Can we go no fumbles too? 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. I think he needs more touchdowns than 2 total rushing and
oh God, I'm more concerned about the interception total.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, no matter what I say, though, I'll sign up for the 0 interceptions. This is a heck of a game if Tyler Buchner does not turn the ball over. So,
I tell you what, if Tyler Buchner throws 35 to 40 times and throws 1 interception, I will take that as a success again. And again, it's not. It is partly Buchner and not really sure about how consistent he's going to be with accuracy, but it's just the environment that he's going into. This is not a piling on of Tyler Buchner. I just think any first-time starting quarterback put in this situation that played 2 years of high school, that just lacks some of the snaps that some guys do going into Ohio Stadium. I think it's just going to be. I hope he can keep it to 1 or 0 interceptions.
The first part of that, I'm not overly concerned about QB play, or I'm not concerned about the offense overall. I just am in terms of how they can score 35 points to beat Ohio State. But the season, we can't only talk about Ohio State when we're looking at the season. And I think the offensive line will be very good. Now, can they be, I put it in Monday Musings, can they be 2017, 2020 level? That's tough because those were 5th years and seniors that were doing that. They could be that next year maybe. I think Mayer is the given. And I have a lot of faith in the development of Tyree Styles. And I like what I see out of Estime. And then you start going to X factors. I mean, Lindsey, we
Right.
think Lindsey can be good. We think Merriweather can be good. He's a true freshman. I think Tyler Buchner's gonna have a good year. It's just he starts in a very rough situation.
Just throw. I mean, he's got to be accurate, you know.
Yeah.
And I in his first year as a starter, I have a difficult time seeing. I mean, what kind of percentage would you put on him? I think it'll be below 60%.
I
I'm
do
not
too.
saying by
I
a
think he'll be
lot.
below 60%, but if he runs and stays healthy running, that can offset some of that
Yeah.
because that's some cheap yards.
If he is above or well above 60%, once again, I will admit that I was fully wrong about that. And I'm not saying that absolutely will happen. I'm just saying, based upon what we've seen, not sure that he's going to, like, for example, where is he with his screen game? Because they want to throw the ball to the running backs in the screen game. And I'm not sure that that's a significant asset in his game at this point. It wasn't for Ian Book.
Right.
And it's a complete, when you think about all the throws a quarterback has to make, it's different than all of them. You have to let up, you change your arm angle, you have to finesse it.
I can
understand why guys would struggle with that.
He's quite an athlete. And throwing on the run and throwing on the move, I shouldn't say run. Throwing on the move is an asset for him. I think I have high hopes that he can operate the screen game better than Ian Book, which oddly, you know what? Ian Book should have been better at the screen game too. I still don't understand why he wasn't, but I think you'll see a little uptick there in the screen game, and they need it desperately. It's probably been worked on all off season. Florida or FL Irish 76. Who needs to have a better day at the office for Notre Dame to defeat Ohio State? Tommy Rees or Al Golden?
Well, they both need to be good. I don't know that it matters whether, which one's better than the other, but Ohio State struggled defensively last year. They gave up 269 yards rushing to Oregon the last two games of the year. Against Michigan and Utah, they gave up 87 points, I think it was. So, Tommy Rees needs to take advantage of. Now they have Jim Knowles as their defensive coordinator. He's excellent. Can he turn everything around in his first game as coordinator? That usually doesn't happen. But Al Golden is the one that's up against it because he's facing an offense that averaged 45 points a game. I know they lost two of their top receivers, but they still have receivers in CJ Stroud. Brendan Joseph was on several occasions during the interview yesterday. He just talked about just how pretty of a ball that CJ Stroud throws. And when you watch film of him, man, it is the most catchable, aesthetic, beautiful throw that you're going to see. So to answer the question, I would say Al Golden, because he's facing a really good offense.
That was my first thought, but now I have rebuttal for you. I'm going
okay.
Can Notre Dame beat Ohio State 21-20?
21-20?
Yeah. Can Notre Dame beat Ohio State 38-35? I think you need points.
Yeah, I think it's more likely the latter, that you would have to do that. 21-20. I've already started to think about what kind of score we're going to predict, or I'm going to predict. And
if they beat Ohio State 21-20, Al Golden is the MVP of that football game, and we better talk to him on Tuesday when we talk to the players.
It's strength against strength.
Yeah,
but Notre Dame should be really good defensively. There's no doubt. But I hope, and this will kind of tie into the last question, Tim, as you look ahead. I hope that, because I was told that Marcus Freeman was in over his head during the first half against Florida State. It was all over our message board. It was already figured out that this guy couldn't handle the pressure of going from Cincinnati to Notre Dame and calling a good defensive game on this level. So can we not completely overreact to a game at Ohio State in the season opener? I think it's impossible. It doesn't matter how many times I say that, but they need to be good. They need to be good. If you could hold, I think we said it last week, 27, 28, 31, 34.
I'll sign me up. All those numbers are good. 27, 28, 31, 34. I'll take all of them. That Notre Dame can win a game if they keep him there.
Question from Irish Deep Dish. Do you see Al Golden going with an aggressive blitzing game plan, or more of a stay over the top, let the defensive line pass rush type of plan against Ohio State?
I mean, I think what I expect from Al Golden is he will be adjusting throughout the game, series by series, as he said he learned to do in the NFL, because at some point they're getting yards. Ohio State is going to get yards. It's going to come down to when it's 4th and 2, does Notre Dame stop them? When it's 3rd and 9, does Notre Dame stop them from getting anything? So they have to punt on 4th and 9 as opposed to go for it on 4th and 2. It's going to be it's situational defense for 60 minutes. And that's how Notre Dame has a chance to stop them from scoring points. What are the chances they don't have at minimum at the end of the game 475 yards of total offense for Ohio State? That's the bare minimum I can imagine.
Let's see. Last year they averaged 561. But I mean, Notre Dame's defense is better than most of the defenses they played against. But yeah, I don't know. I do feel like Notre Dame, if what we heard about what has happened in the preseason is accurate, then maybe this offense is a little bit better than we anticipated. And Ohio State's defense was vulnerable as hell last year. They gave up.
I'm just saying Notre Dame's defense versus Ohio State's offense. I don't think you're just going to go out there and play 4-man rush, nor can you blitz wildly and leave your guys.
Oh, you mix it up. And when they blitz, it's going to be something a little bit different from one to the next. I mean, you're going to
see weird 3-down, 4-down situations from Golden. He's obviously, I don't know if he let it slip, but he mentioned when we go 4 down, when we go 3 down, like in his interview with us, he was kind of pointing out guys that play situationally with when you brought up Chris Smith.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a surprise. I mean, we knew he was going to use 3 and 4. You can't go ahead, Tim, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
I feel like we're going to see something. The reason we haven't seen anything is we're going to see something we don't expect. The media did not see anything formationally on defense. The one thing we saw was at one point we saw 3 safeties in a period, and we brought it to Chris O'Leary, and he kind of gave us this look like,
you want to talk about?
You'll see 2. You'll see. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Here's the thing. Yeah, I mean, let's just look at this at face value. Okay, you want to bring the house against CJ Stroud on a regular basis. You want to put your DBs in one-on-one situations with Smith and Jigba and Buka and Harrison, and I mean, you got to be smart about it. You have to protect the back end of your defense a little bit too, because that's how Ohio State kills people. CJ Stroud, that's how you against Oregon, they lost the Oregon game, and he threw for over 400 yards, and he wasn't sharp early, and he got picked off late. But that was a kid. Now that's a first-time starter, but he was at home, and he's a Heisman Trophy candidate, so we're talking about a little bit of a different animal here. But you have to pick your spots. If you put your secondary in man coverage and Travion Henderson breaks the line of scrimmage, your backs are to the line of scrimmage. So that's not an ideal situation either. So to characterize how Golden's going to call a game, it's going to be a mixture, but I don't think it's an overabundance of blitzing, because you look at the matchup between your defensive front and their offensive front, and you say, all right, we'll stand toe to toe with you and take our chances.
Next from T. Branson, who is the under-talked about guy that could have a great game against Ohio State? Who is the talked about guy that might struggle based on matchups or other reasons?
I'm a little reluctant to answer the second question because nobody exactly jumps out at me, but I would say Audric Estime. I think Estime is going to have a big day against Ohio State. Now, Tyree is there. I just think Estime is going to break some tackles. I've started to watch Ohio State, or I started watching Ohio State in the summer, but I'm starting more like the beginning of the season, working my way to the end of the season. And, you see the problems that they had against Oregon. Well, they had some of those same problems against Michigan and Utah too. So I think they're going to have, I think their linebackers, Eichenberg early in the year he was missing run fits right and left. Now he must have gotten a lot better as the season progressed, but I would say Estime. That's my first pick.
Yeah. We talk about so many guys. It's hard. I could see Braden Lenzy being very good until he gets kind of banged up. I think Brian Kelly was never wrong about that he is, he needs to be full speed to be effective. Now they've challenged him to try to make himself full speed more often. I think it's pretty clear the talked about guy that might struggle based on the matchups Ohio State has a lot of NFL skill position out there, and I think Notre Dame's very good linebacker core, it's humanly possible, could struggle against those guys in space. I like Bo Bauer, J.D. Bertrand, Leafau, and Kaiser. They are on an island at some point in this game, right?
Yeah.
They're really good players, but this is a tough matchup for those guys. It's a tough matchup for every guy.
Yeah.
Like
that's why. I mean, that's why they're Ohio State. I mean, that's why they average 560 yards a game and 45.7 points per game, and their quarterback's coming back. And if anything, he's only going to be better, having thrown for 4,400 yards and 41 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Question from Club Fred 90. After meeting with the specialist last week and seeing a full practice, are you more confident or less confident in Notre Dame special teams this year?
More. Done.
Yeah, no doubt about it, including Brandon Joseph returning punts. I mean, again, we go back to McPherson and the kickoffs. That can eliminate the danger of a kick return. I think Ibuka is the guy that will do their kick returns. And last year
they had a scout team guy wearing his jersey yesterday.
Yeah, he averaged 29 yards a return on 20 attempts last year, so he's pretty good. But
well, we got to be more excited. They don't have to kick it to him anymore. He can just put it in the back of the end zone every time.
Right.
According to
so that's one advantage. I don't know that Sott is going to be a boomer, but you would like to think that he's going to be pretty consistent. We got a little bit spoiled with Jay Bramlett because it was very difficult to return his punts, and I'm not sure where Sott's going to be. But to answer the question succinctly, yes, I think everybody feels a lot more confident about the specialist after the interaction that we had and some of the feedback that we've gotten.
Next from Raffman 68, turnovers will be extremely important this year. What are your thoughts and expectations over the 12-game schedule?
Well, I commented in the defensive report the other day, once again, that they really, really work hard on dislodging the football from the offense. The defense does that. And, so I think Notre Dame's going to create their fair share of turnovers, but I do want to. Notre Dame has been on the plus side of turnovers for each of the last 5 years. 2016 was a disaster, but since 2017, Notre Dame has been +3, +4, +17 in 2019 when they created 28 turnovers, and then 2020 +6 in a 12-game schedule, and then last year +9. I think Notre Dame's on the plus side. I think it's single digits on the plus side. Hopefully it's closer to the 9 of 2021 than the +4 of 2018, because we've talked about, I think Buchner turns the ball over a little bit more because he's not as experienced as Book was, and Cone. But they're going to create their fair share of turnovers too, because it's really, really emphasized.
25 created last year. That's that's relevant. Those are the players coming back, 28, the 2019 stats, every time we say them, are so skewed because they beat the living daylights out of Bowling Green and New Mexico State, and they have all those touchdowns and turnovers and everything from that. So it's always weird to break it down. But 25, you'd take 25-16 this year, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Give me a +9 with a first-time starting quarterback. Yeah, I think that would be very good.
Next from iWord 30. What are your expectations for Xavier Watts at receiver and safety? Will he be able to handle the mental and physical workload of cross-training on offense and defense?
Well, we covered this pretty thoroughly. I mean, I think ultimately he'd probably settle into one spot more than the other. But man, when you see him, the catch, it's etched in our minds. We saw it in practice last Friday, and he can go up and get the ball. And then the comments by Brandon Joseph about the kind of hands that he has and what he's capable of doing. I don't want to set the expectations too high, like in terms of receptions, because that's just difficult to project right now, that he's just starting to learn the position. But I expect him to make a contribution on offense, and I expect it to be positive. He's a physical defender. He should be a physical runner with the football in his hands.
I think they need all 8 receivers that are scholarship receivers to compete through 3 months, and they already have 4 starting safeties. And he would be the 5th that fills in. So wide receiver, I believe he will settle in out of need. and then you figure it out going forward. But hopefully we see him hitting some people on special teams.
Yeah, I didn't finish that quote from Brandon Joseph, and I want to do that now. He said, he was talking about why I try to figure out all the mental parts of being a safety. I couldn't imagine having that offensive playbook in my back pocket too. And then he said, I'm here for him, anything that needs from me on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, it's a juggling act. And oh, by the way, yeah, classes start this week too. So he's going to have to deal with that in addition to offense, defense, and 2 of the special teams. But he seems to be pretty well equipped. And again, I think ultimately he has to kind of settle in a little bit more to one side or the other. And the need is greater right now at receiver, and he can still have a real positive impact defensively on special teams coverage.
Statman 72, in projecting this season's record, many fans anticipate Notre Dame going 2-2 against the quartet of Ohio State, BYU, Clemson, and USC. But isn't that really saying a loss to Ohio State and 2-1 versus the remaining 3? If Notre Dame can beat Ohio State, then why would the Irish go only 1-2 against the other good teams? So separate from Ohio State, Tim, what is Notre Dame's most likely record against BYU, Clemson, and USC?
I mean, you can beat Oregon beat Ohio State and then lost 4 times after that. So, I mean, I don't know that just because you beat Ohio State means that you're going to be at your absolute best against the other 3 opponents. Let me ask you this. What do you think Notre Dame's record is against those 4 teams?
I think they will go 2-2. No, I think I'm giving away our season by season, game by game pick here. Tim.
Okay, let me ask you this: are they more likely to go 3-1 or 1-3 against those 4 teams?
I think they're more likely to go 2-2 than either one of those things. So but seriously, like you make a good point about Oregon. I think Notre Dame is a better team than Oregon was last year. But
I agree, but but their team speed is what.
But it's not like people are really, because they lose to who they're supposed to lose to and beat who they're supposed to beat over the last 6 years or 5 years, forget that it's not always that way. Like Notre Dame can beat Ohio State and lose 2 games this year. They can.
Yeah.
Because they could drop a game. They can drop a game to someone they shouldn't drop a game to. I know BC has to replace their entire offensive line. On paper, at that point in that game, Notre Dame should handle BC because of that. But stuff happens. I don't think North Carolina on the road is a harder game than BC at home, but I could be wrong. It's on the road. Maybe it's a harder game for Tyler Buchner that day on the road than it would have been. There's so many things that come into this because Brian Kelly kept beating teams he should beat his last 5 years and getting waxed more often than not, other than the Clemson win against teams you're supposed to lose to. We assume it's going to be the same way. I feel like they are going to lose a game as a favorite this year, but I still think they could beat Ohio State or Clemson.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad. Let me just, you mentioned BC and their offensive line. I'm glad that you pointed that out because I keep talking about that game, Djokovic, McNulty, good defense, really good secondary. But if your offensive line can't, their offensive line is going to have a hell of a time trying to compete against Notre Dame's defensive line. And so
all these games on paper, Notre Dame should have, except for Clemson and Ohio State. However, that is not how the sport is generally played. It's not. If you want to go on paper, then you're going to have a very sad beginning to the season. If you tell me Notre Dame cannot lose to any of those other teams besides Clemson, then why are you saying they can beat Ohio State?
That's
the biggest spread of the year.
We see upsets. We see upsets every week of every year, and to say that such and such team can't lose to. I mean, as great as Ara Parseghian was, Ara Parseghian lost some games. It was like, how do you lose to Missouri at home?
The Cal line, the last I saw it, was Notre Dame by 17. Do you think Notre Dame's going to lose to Cal? Because I don't.
No.
Well, the Ohio State line is 15.5.
You know what the line was for Oregon last year?
No more, probably, right?
No, it was 14. Yeah. So, okay. I mean, the spread is greater now for Notre Dame against Ohio State than it was Oregon. It was still a bunch. It was still 2 touchdowns. And Notre Dame's a little bit more than that. But I just, anybody that says that they can predict Notre Dame USC today
right,
is lying to themselves because that's not possible. We haven't seen USC. I mean, I keep saying the USC is going to be different than than the USC we've seen for the last 6 or 7 years. I mean, that's almost guaranteed. Clay Helton's not there anymore, but I don't know how you predict Notre Dame USC now. We haven't even seen them play, and they've got two dozen transfers, including all the guys, not disgruntled players that chose to transfer to USC.
Right.
Frontline skill position players going to USC to try to build them back up, to a national power again. So I don't know. The only thing I'm capable of predicting right now is, not next Friday, is Notre Dame, Ohio State. And, but those 4 teams, would you take 2 and 2?
Yeah, I would. It'd be as long as they don't blow another game, Tim, I'd take 2 and 2.
Well,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
I think they're much more likely to go 2 and 2 against those teams than 1 and 3. Like way more likely. Way more likely. I don't think they're going 1 and 3 against those 4 teams.
So of Ohio State, Clemson, and USC, the most likely to win would be USC on the road in Game 12. Are you saying that?
No, I'm saying Clemson at home.
Okay.
They're a good home team. It's a good home program now. I don't think they're losing that from Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I hope not. Let's just go one at a time, because that's all my mind can handle with any kind of accuracy.
Are you more or less confident than you were 5 years ago in Notre Dame's ability to win a national title in the near future? 5 years ago, I'm way more confident.
Yeah, way more confident, because Brian Kelly handed Marcus Freeman a great program. But consider this for a second. Okay, 2023, Ohio State, USC, at Clemson, at NC State. 2024, at Texas A&M, at USC, Florida State, Miami. I don't know where Florida State's going to be, but I think we expect Miami to take a jump up. 2025, at Arkansas, Texas A&M, USC, at Miami. 2026, at USC in Game 12, Wisconsin. I've got somebody else written down here, and I can't read my own writing, but it's an away game somewhere, and it must be a pretty good one. And then 2027, at Clemson, at Michigan State. So, I mean, yeah, you feel great about where the program is. Marcus Freeman is raising the level of recruiting. Keon Keeley or no Keon Keeley. So you feel good about all of that. But Sampson was the first one, I think, when his question or something similar to it was posed a while back, he pointed to the schedules, and he's right. They're going to this one is more difficult. This current one is more difficult than the ones they've had in recent years. So I think
this one sets up to be able to lose your first game, though, and you would get in.
True.
If you run the table, like Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame will get in if they lose to Ohio State and then run the table against the
True.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
Unless Clemson has a real fall, that would be a problem. Yeah. Whereas, I mean, I think by playing Ohio State and Clemson the next 2 years, you can go 11-1, assuming those teams are what they need to be. Like last year, it just wasn't a good enough. If they lost to Ohio State last year instead of Cincinnati, there's more respect for Ohio State than Cincinnati. Yeah. They would have had a shot.
No, but I mean, I think they're much better position to win a national title than they were 2017.
But they're in a much worse position to win a national title than they were in 2012, because they got to beat 2 teams as good as Alabama.
Very true. Very true.
The problem.
We're going to wrap up with a question from Old Chunk of Coal. And that is, what will be the most overused sports cliche in this year's coverage of Notre Dame football?
That's an interesting question from a whole chunk of coal. Do you have a particular one in mind, Tim?
Yes, I have one. And that is that the shackles are off. Tommy Rees is the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. There weren't shackles on Tommy Rees the last couple of years. He called the plays. They devised the game plan with Brian Kelly together during the week. But I mean, I've had on great authority, I've been told that is just not true. And so I think somewhere along the line, the other one is, like, if they lose and Buchner struggles, immediately people say that Buchner can't play and will never be any good.
I was thinking along the lines with Freeman when they lose a game that he's in over his head.
That's at some point, the fact that you're playing at Ohio State in the first game, at some point that's going to be said, and that is unfair, because you have to learn how to be a head coach to a large extent, and So there's some degree of growing pains. There has to be. It's impossible not to. He's in situations he's never been before. And so, things aren't, it's 12-game schedule, and things aren't always going to go as well as you'd like. They're going to have a home game against somebody that you shouldn't think they're struggling against, and they will, not because of any shortcomings, but because that's college football.
It's human nature. Yeah. I actually have that. I wanted to add this in a different segment. I have my one game I'm going to offer advice for when they say predict a winner. I predict that when Notre Dame plays game 2 against Marshall, you take the points with Marshall.
I agree. I agree.
Whether
with
they
that.
upset Ohio State and are number 2 in the country, or they lose 8 months of prepping for Ohio State, is now 3 days of barely caring about Marshall.
Yeah, not that they're necessarily going to play poorly or lose the game, but
I don't mean the Ball State type thing where you need an onside kick to win it.
No, I don't think so either. But I think Marshall has some components. We've talked about it, that where they could come in and play pretty well. That's a human nature. That's,
you said college
story.
Football, and that's what I think college football is. That game is closer than it should be.
Okay, we are 11 days away from the opening kickoff, which means we are back in the 2 podcasts per week mode. So we will be back on Thursday to talk more Notre Dame football and probably answer a lot of questions similar to this about Notre Dame versus Ohio State. I don't know that I can hint at that, but we may have something tomorrow that podcast wise that our listeners and readers will be happy to listen to. So we appreciate you joining us here on Irish Illustrated Insider. Next time, it will be probably a bigger crew. Thanks for joining us. This has been Irish Illustrated Insider.